Thanks for being here, though it's sad that we're still here 10 years later, and in many cases asking some of the same questions. Part of this, well, before I start, very quickly, I just wanted to thank everybody. Thank Carol, certainly, Esteban, thank Bonnie Faulkner, who's had a long-time show on KPFA that really delves into these issues. So is Dennis Bernstein of Flashpoints, and some of you may know that Peter Phillips and I are now also on KPFA Friday mornings at 8 o'clock. The more the merrier, and we can all get there together. We can help get more of this information out to the public. So that's the idea. Tomorrow morning, by the way, we'll be interviewing Tony Hall and Kathy McGrade, so if you want to tune in, we'll be there. In 3 hours on Sunday afternoon, we're holding a debate with Richard Gage and many other people all over the Pacifica Network. So granted, they've been late in the game and they haven't done a lot, but now they're starting to change their tune some, and we're hoping that that will continue. George Orwell wrote something that you may not have heard of. It was actually a suppressed introduction to Animal Farm. Eventually, it was published in 1972 in the New York Times Literary Supplement. It was called Freedom of the Press, and it states, of course, he wrote this back in the 40s, unpopular ideas can be silenced and inconvenient facts kept dark without the need for any official ban. At any given moment, there's an orthodoxy, a body of ideas which it is assumed that all right-thinking people will accept without question. It is not exactly forbidden to say this or that or the other, but it is not done to say it. Anyone who challenges the prevailing orthodoxy finds him or herself silenced with surprising effectiveness. A genuinely unfashionable opinion is almost never given a fair hearing, either in the popular press or in the highbrow periodicals. My, how things have not changed. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, adopted in 1948 by the UN General Assembly, affirmed, quote, that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. We need to live up to and enforce these rights, as together these are the cornerstones of democratic self-governance. Reclaiming the commons of a free press and public information in support of the right of people to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media, as outlined in the UN Declaration of Human Rights, is of paramount concern to Project Censored, where I am now director, and Peter Phillips will be speaking here later on this evening. As journalist and scholar David Bollier wrote in 2002 in his work Silent Theft, the Private Plunder of Our Commonwealth, quote, the loss of a public commons in broadcasting might be counted as one of the great civic and cultural losses of the 20th century. It's important to consider, though, that censorship by its very nature is a form of propaganda, deceptive communication used to sway or influence public opinion to benefit a special interest, party, or individual. And people familiar with the narratives of 9/11 are no stranger to these issues. Propaganda and this particular type of censorship is intentional by nature. It is often the result of a plan hatched to achieve certain objectives to gain of one party at the expense of another. In essence, this is a conspiracy. We use this term fully aware that it has unfortunately become a buzzword for propagandistic attacks against any story that is outside the realm of conventional wisdom. In other words, out of bounds for consideration, regardless of factual content, like many of the films that we're seeing here today. Such exclusion is also a clear violation of the freedom of expression and free press principles ensconced in the First Amendment. In short, the decision by media institutions to run or not run a particular news story, or to include or exclude a certain view based on anything other than the desire to report the full truth, is censorship and functions as a form of propaganda. Censorship includes many techniques: framing, slighting of content, appealing to emotion over logic. Many tactics are involved in media manipulation, also referred to as spin. These methods are used to create matter-of-fact conspiracies to manipulate or withhold information. These are not the conspiracy theories as used in the pejorative comprised of wild speculation and paranoia. And if wild speculation dominates a particular message, when unsupported theories present themselves as solid truths rather than as possibilities requiring further investigation. Sober challenges based on all the known facts should be put forth to tame them in free debate, not dismissively ignore or attack them a priori. Simply put, censorship of any kind must be confronted and dismantled. The great playwright George Bernard Shaw once wrote, "All great truths begin as blasphemies." If we can't get past the stage at which controversial stories are merely blasphemies, we may never arrive at the truth of many important matters, up to and including 9/11. To lump all potentially conspiratorial topics together does a disservice to free speech, as factual conspiracies, proven to have censored information about wrongdoings and state crimes against democracy, have a long past. This type of labeling acts to censor further investigation. This labeling comes from a place of fear of the facts and to where they may lead. A free press cannot tolerate such restrictive forms of communication and must resist them at all turns, lest that system fall into disrepute with the public and fail at its constitutionally protected mission of keeping the electorate informed. The corporate media have failed in this task, and they cannot be reformed. These problems of censorship and the use of propaganda also have long proven pasts, and we need to act in concert to overcome these dual demons for democracy, purge ourselves of the plagues of fear and secrecy, and truly come out into the light of knowledge and hope. Franklin Roosevelt wrote in 1941, when delivering an address to Congress, some of you may know this speech, it's the 4 freedoms. He said, "In the future days, which we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. The third is freedom from want, which translated into terms means economic understandings, and will secure to every nation a healthy peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. That is no vision of a distant millennium." He's writing this in 1941. "It is a definite basis for a kind of world attainable in our own time and generation. That kind of world is the very antithesis of the so-called new order of tyranny, which the dictators seek to create with the crash of a bomb. To what new order we oppose the greater conception, the moral order. A good society is able to face schemes of world domination and foreign revolutions alike without fear." End quote. Well, those words have become both apt and prescient, but we cannot face schemes of world domination abroad without also examining them right here at home, especially when those ambitions emanate from our very own leaders in government, indeed from our own empire, which is, to be sure, everywhere in the world. Future days are here now in 2011, and we still have much work to do to fulfill this promise of Roosevelt's 4 freedoms. We can't wait for that distant millennium because it's already here. One way to face our current challenges is by seriously adopting these freedoms, by considering free speech and expression, by providing public with honest, fact-based information accurately reported by the free press, and then perhaps we can overcome the many challenges we face, from 9/11, the 9/11 wars, all of the fraud that's going on with banking and so forth. These are problems that we have to tackle. Rabindranath Tagore, the great Indian poet, once said, "Truth comes as a conqueror only because we've lost the art of receiving it as a friend." We face a truth emergency in the United States, largely as a result of dominant top-down managed news agencies of information control. Both the U.S. government and the corporate media essentially have a duopoly on manipulating the public mind for political or commercial gain. Leading the public to one view or another is the name of the game, rather than reporting all the facts and letting the chips fall where they may. Even red chips, nanothermite chips. In America, consumers of corporate news broadcasts are the most likely to be confused about facts of what's really going on in the world, and those who follow political discourse among elected officials are very likely to come away confused based on the increasing ideological nature of these types of exchanges. At short, this truth emergency is created by a lack of purity in news, a lack of factual reporting by the press, and a lack of critical thinking by journalists and the public at large. In this climate, propaganda thrives and generates a society based on hyper-reality and illusions, one where people are unable to discern fact from opinion, incapable of deconstructing dissembling demagogues. This clearly represents a crisis for democracy. The truth of our major issues remains elusive to the public, and the only antidote lies in not only exposing the charlatans of the establishment order as the propagandists they are, but also in providing a broader understanding of how this propaganda works, how to detect it, and what we can do about it. The solution to create an independent free press, one not beholden to moneyed interests, rather one that tells the people the truth about all matters, regardless of which powerful parties may be exposed for their possible state crimes against democracy. In closing, Walter Lippmann, the 20th century journalist known for his work in support of elite management of information, also warned about the dangers of propaganda after the First World War. Where its use was widespread, especially in the U.S. under the Committee for Public Information, Lippmann wrote in Liberty and the News, quote, "Without protection against propaganda, without standards of evidence, without criteria of emphasis, the living substance of all popular decision is exposed to every prejudice and to infinite exploitation. The quack, charlatan, jingo, and terrorist can flourish only where the audience is deprived of independent access to information. Understanding this is the antidote to our current truth emergency." Jacques Ellul, 2 generations later, the propaganda scholar, wrote, "Propaganda feeds, develops, and spreads the systems of false claims, lies aimed at the complete transformation of minds, judgments, values, and actions, constituting a frame of reference for systematic falsification. When the eyeglasses are out of focus, everything one sees through them is distorted. It is for these very reasons that the public must not only have access to accurate information, but also understand and combat propaganda along the path to forming a better, more democratic free press structure. Ultimately, this helps create a more informed, thoroughly engaged citizenry, no longer susceptible to propaganda, and this is a crucial step toward restoration of our republic, and it is a major component of the media revolution that we desperately need." Thank you very much. Please stay with us after the intermission for the next film in the series. Thanks very much for being here, and thanks for supporting today's events to find out what really has been going on in this country for the last 10 years.